All right, we're live. Only like 20 minutes late. Real professional show here.
Hmm.
But we're here out of our regular time slot here on a Monday night. Uh, Currently watching Kansas State and Utah battle. Uh, Utah coming off a win that we will talk about here soon on Saturday. What a yeah! That's one I'm interested to talk about because that was rough. But Duke absolutely kicking the shit out of Virginia right now, among other things. So,
Shame. That game used to
uh,
be must-see TV every year, and now it's
yeah.
a joke.
Um, I also think the big news of today in college basketball was the revelation that the Delta Devils men's basketball team account it's been a
It's a
parody
fake.
account this whole
I,
time.
I,
It's like
I,
finding out Santa Claus isn't real.
I brought that
Very
up
sad.
when we first talked about it. I was like, I'm pretty sure it says parody at the bottom. Although
Well, they
the
had to add parody
yeah,
after if somebody
yeah,
reported them. And they tried to change it
I
to unofficial, and they were like, no, you have to put parody.
I also but the one good thing is the announcers are real. The Mississippi Valley State announcers are real. They're
Yeah.
No, I
like
knew that.
three,
I've
yeah.
seen the games. I've I've seen the clips at least.
Mhm.
Let me get these clips tweeted out before we go full tilt. Somebody say something. I'm tweeting these clips right now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I was locked into my screen here. Couldn't take my eyes off of Utah basketball.
I was also tweeting clips, trying to get or tweet the links to the live stream to get some people in here. Um, but it was a big day of college ball, or big weekend of some college ball, some big games, some big upsets. Um, Teams not performing to their potential. Um,
Uh, at least the number one team in the country did, right?
yeah,
Not in the coaches
Auburn.
poll.
I mean, Auburn took care of business like I thought they would. I just
um,
figured Alabama's defense wouldn't be able to keep up with Auburn.
well, it's kind of that wasn't even really the case. I wouldn't blame Alabama's defense. I think Auburn just outshot Alabama in that game. Really, Bama was.
Mhm.
That's a. We'll start with that one since we're talking about it. But obviously, the big one of Saturday. Much to my elation, Auburn went on the road to Tuscaloosa, took home a 94-85 win, never trailed at any point in the game. Fully for anybody who doubted it or questioned it, the coaches, uh, anybody else, uh, Auburn took care of business. What's up, Coop? Uh, Auburn took care of business. This, the clear number one team in the country. This is not long after the committee released their top 16, which Auburn was obviously number one in. And I don't. It would take an insane collapse at this point for Auburn to not be the number one overall seed come March. Um, like I said, never trailed at any point in the game. Sears was awful. He made the box score look a little better late in the game. Got to the line a bunch, but he couldn't make everything or anything. That was a beautiful game. Beautiful. Couldn't have scripted it any better. Uh, Denver Jones was absolutely incredible guarding Sears, playing defense. He was knocking down big shots. Auburn got out to a 9-0 lead early. Broom was awesome. Uh, just like everything was. Cheney Johnson was awesome. Man, that was just a beautiful one. And I mean, the game day hangover curse distraction thing. I know me and William Luke talked about it on his show after we lost to Florida, but It might be a real thing because I was thinking about that with Alabama, and then they came into this game and just completely laid an egg. And I mean, Auburn did not. It wasn't like a Auburn lockdown defensive performance with us like running them off the 3-point line and not giving them looks. Like they were rebounding well, they were getting good looks from three. Uh, Bama had every chance to get a lead to make this a game to win it to take it over. Like they had chances and they just weren't making anything. I mean, it was late in the first half there or late in the second half, uh, and they only had what 2 3 pointers made at one point late in the second half. I think I'm looking now; they finished 5 for 26. So they had plenty of opportunities in that one, and that's what concerned me in the first half is we were giving them all these clean looks and they weren't knocking them down, and I was worried it was going to flip, but it never did, and Auburn never trailed in this game. About as well as you can script it on the road. That's now Bruce Pearl twice in his career. No other coach in college basketball can say that they played in an in-state 1 versus 2 matchup twice on the road, gone on the road and won both times. And Bruce Pearl did it at Tennessee, went on the road at Memphis and won the Derrick Rose year, and now he goes on the road, wins at Alabama this time. Just super, super impressive stuff. Couldn't be happier, more thrilled. I certainly didn't. I figured this would be a battle throughout, but for Auburn to just take control early and never trail in this game, um, it doesn't get much better than that. Uh, so definitely have to get your guys' thoughts on it, but that definitely the most important game of the year to date.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprising score at all. Auburn's clearly been the best team uh, through the first few months of the season. And that win against Alabama might have just secured them a #1 seed for the tournament. Uh, Not sure about #1 seed yet. There's still a ways to go, but
I mean, they're
definitely,
so far ahead
yeah, yeah,
in the resume, though. It
yeah,
would take an insane collapse for
yeah.
Auburn to not get that at this point. But
Yeah,
I mean,
they are that good, and that's kind of I mean, I would say they have already locked up #1 overall. I mean, they would probably have to win one of their remaining games and be first round exit in SEC tournament play, not to get it maybe. But overall, yeah, that was impressive stuff. More defensively, I thought that was one of their best defensive games. When they played Florida, they were pretty out of it. They were not engaged on that end. Florida knocked down everything. They were first every loose ball, and that was not the case in this one, which you kind of expected from them.
and see,
But
I thought I didn't think we exactly like completely dominated that game defensively. Like I thought Bama had plenty of good looks in this game. Like I wasn't like I said I mean I said it at the end of the first half and I tweeted it like I was nervous because we were still giving them good looks from three. It wasn't like when Ole Miss played them and they were just completely running them off the 3-point line and not giving up anything there. Like they had their chances in this game and had a lot of good looks, and they were also doing a lot of damage on the offensive glass. Like they had that one possession where they got 3 offensive rebounds and Holloway knocked down the third attempt they had from three. Um, I didn't exactly think it was Auburn's like best defensive game
I thought
by
they
any
defended
stretch
well
of the
enough. I thought they
imagination.
ran them off. I mean, they did. I mean, Bama manufactures 3-point looks really well. That's obviously their offense. And I mean, in this game, they limited Grant Nelson to only, I think Grant Nelson took 1 3 in the game. Jaron Stevenson, I think, took 3. But I don't know if anyone besides Sears had over 4 attempts from 3. They
I'm
did do a
looking
good
now.
job of running them off the line. And they made,
Holloway took 4. That was the
yeah.
only other one.
But they did do a really good job running the Bama shooters off 3-point line and really just trying to make all the, layups they were going to take as tough as possible because they knew they could concede the mid-range attempts because Bama doesn't do those. So they made it really hard on Sears in particular. I thought that was probably the most impressive thing they did that game was making things really tough on Mark Sears. Mark Sears is great. He's the SEC's best guard, but that game
Is he? Is he?
I think so. And I think he left a lot on the table in that game. Auburn made every basket really hard on him. They made every attempt really hard on him. He shot poorly from distance. So that was probably the most impressive job. As you said before, Denver Jones did really well on him. And it's impressive because usually in these games you see, if you're guarding a player Sears caliber, your offensive output is going to be affected. That was not the case this game with Denver Jones. So
I mean, he knocked down 2 3-pointers immediately.
Yeah, he gave them a ton. He got 16 in that game. So
he had 16,
his offensive performance didn't dip at all.
Yeah,
he was great for them.
Janai had 19. Denver had 16. Miles Kelly had 15. Pettiford had 15. Chaney Johnson had 14. Chad Baker-Mazara had 15. Everybody got their licks in this one.
Yeah, and Bama didn't really – I mean, I did not really approve of the Bama game plan remotely defensively. Clearly, they had the idea that they were just going to go in and try and outscore Auburn, and that just wasn't going to work if they weren't knocking down those shots. They did not do a great job on Janai. It wasn't Janai's best game, but I still don't think they did the best job on him possible. They did not cut off the threes nearly enough from Auburn in that game, and they were not great against the Chad Baker-Mazara iso ball aspect of things. They just, it was kind of not a weak defensive effort all the way around, but I mean, they just didn't do a good enough job of, fighting through ball screens to limit some of the shooting. Especially that was where they had really struggled because Auburn knocked down some pretty wide open threes. Most of these threes that they hit were just like wide open without a contest. And some of those shooters are too good.
Janai knocked down a couple where they just they weren't defending him out there at all, and they weren't giving him any respect out there. And Janai can and that's where he's developed so much in the last 3 years as a player from when he came to Auburn from Morehead State to now is Janai was not a guy who could knock down those shots when he first got to Auburn. That was not his game at all. He couldn't stretch it outside the paint. That was not where he made his money. And he's a guy now, and Bama didn't make the adjustments they needed to on him in this one. And where if you give Janai the space from the 3-point line, he can knock down those shots. And he's added that aspect that he's added to his game this year is why he's gone from a fringe guy that might get drafted and play in the league to a guy who's probably going to be a first-round pick this year now.
That's the difference for him. The outside shot is what's going to get him drafted. It was always going to be, kind of the difference between, being pick 50 through 58, or now you're seeing he might be anywhere from, 25 to 40 range. The outside shot's what's going to get him drafted if and when he does, because he's not he's good around the rim, but he's not elite around the rim per se with his touch. So yeah, if he can, continue developing that just makes them tougher to guard. They're already really hard to guard, and not a lot of teams are capable of really defending them. But Bama tried and failed on this one. This only works if you hold up your end on the offensive end, and they did not. And Auburn's better than them. They're just straight up better. They're a better team right now. And if, when they play again, they're going to need to come in with a different approach defensively. And Sears, in particularly, is going to need to get a little more hard-nosed for the next game against them. Because
Sears was horrendous in this game. And, that's why Alabama
the engine of that team. And, if he's playing that way, honestly, that performance might have been good enough to beat, everyone else besides Auburn and Florida, maybe, and Duke. But it's not good enough to beat Auburn. So right now, Bama just needs to kind of readjust some things defensively. But yeah, this is about Auburn. They're the best team, and it would the bar for them to get the top overall seed now should be very low. It should be theirs. They've earned it. And now, now they're in the part of the season where Bruce Pearl just needs to keep them going, and for their performance not to dip, not to have complacency creep in with that group, because they have a chance to pull off a pretty special season ahead of them now. So
Yeah, I mean Auburn is. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and if Auburn, I was looking at something else. Okay, if Auburn, I believe it was, if they win the regular season, the games they're supposed to at least, and they go to the championship game in the SEC, they'll be over 20 quad one wins in a season, which is absurd. It would shatter the all-time record, and probably would be hard because I don't know if we're ever going to see a league like this again, at least for a very long time, wherever it is. And I mean that's what makes it for Auburn to be having the season they're having in the SEC this year, when it's possibly the best conference of all time we've ever seen in a single season, and to continue to win these games. It's a dream season. I think for what it's worth too, and we've talked a lot about Coach of the Year on here. I think after that game, unless Auburn just completely falls apart after this, which I don't think anybody anticipates, Coach of the Year should be over. It's Bruce Pearl's award now, and I don't think there should be any debate there for Auburn to be having this season in this iteration of the SEC. I don't think that should even be a debate anymore.
I mean, people are going to debate it. It's it's certainly, I tend to err on that as well, where he's done a really good job with this group, with their non-conference scheduling, and just in the league. I wouldn't be opposed to him winning that. I mean, I still think, in terms of the individual coaching job, I would still put Rick Pitino's job at St. John's a little ahead of Bruce Pearl. But in terms of the season, resume and accomplishments for the team, if that's criteria you're using, yeah, then it's a no-brainer.
And also, after this game, there was a huge swing in the National Player of the Year race, where the debate there's still been the discourse with Broom and Cooper Flag, but it seemed like the betting markets were strongly favoring Cooper Flag still. There was a big swing after this game where I believe Flag coming into Saturday was sitting at plus or minus 400 something, minus 500. And after this game, he went from that to now Flag is minus 150 on FanDuel, and Broom is plus 115 after the game Broom had at Alabama and that win for Auburn. So this completely, if anybody thought the National Player of the Year race was over, and I think all three of us did, and myself included, even as the Auburn fan, this definitely the National Player of the Year race has to be neck and neck at this point, if not Broom.
Yeah, this is Janai's
but
path
possibly
back in,
front.
is playing in the bigger games and games that matter more. So he's going to get more national exposure with some of these games. I mean, I don't think there's really, per my opinion, much debate that Cooper Flag is not better than Janai per se. But the remaining games, they'll play Arkansas. That's going to be, there are going to be a lot of eyes on that game. There's going to be a lot of eyes when they play Ole Miss. There's going to be a lot of eyes when they play at Kentucky. They play A&M, and then they play Bama again. So he's got a really good chance to build a case based on those games, because that's always the advantage he's going to have over Cooper Flag, is that he's going to play in bigger games against better players and just in games that matter with more eyes on him. So
Impressive
aside from the
rattling
Carolina game, that's all Cooper Flag has remaining. I think he's better than Janai Broome. I think he, I would still say he wins it, but it's certainly, you have to factor in the competition and who he's done against. A lot of people will, point to that Flag beat him head to head, and that still might be the deciding vote for a lot of people. But yeah, I would say it's still it should be wide open, and people should go in with an open mind about who it should be.
I do push back on one thing you said, and that's Cooper Flag is he's going to have a better NBA career than Janai Broome. He's a better NBA prospect than Janai Broome. That's not a debate. But just as a college basketball player this season, I don't agree with outright saying Cooper Flag is better than Janai Broome, because Janai Broome is the best player on the best team in the nation in the best conference we've ever seen. And he stepped up and, other than Florida, every big game this year, stood every test. He leads Auburn in points, rebounds, and assists. So I do push back on that, just outright saying Cooper Flag is a better college basketball player than Janai Broome, which you just said. I think if we're looking at National Player of the Year as who's been the best player, the most valuable player in college basketball this year, when you take Janai Broome, you take how good Auburn's been and the teams they've beat and the season they've had, I think Broome has slightly been the better player this year. In my obviously biased opinion, but I just push back on you saying outright Cooper Flag is a better player.
Sure. I mean, it's super competitive. I think Flag's better. I mean, if you want to push back against it's not definitive, yeah, I think I wouldn't scoff at that take. I mean, and most of the advanced stuff favors Cooper Flag. I mean, just especially defensively, that's some of the biggest impact he's had on that Duke team.
Let me ask this: if you took Janai Broome off of Auburn and put Cooper Flag on Auburn, is Auburn still having the season they're having right now? Would they still be just as good?
It's hard to point and say if Cooper Flag were playing for Auburn when they played Florida, they would have beat them. I don't know if that's that day in particular. I don't know if you could really say that. But I don't know. I think it would be probably similar. It would not be much different. The games they would have won, they probably would have won. The games they lost, they may probably have lost. I mean, most of the advanced stats favor Cooper Flag. In terms of win shares, Cooper Flag's third in win shares in the country. Offensive win shares, he's up there. Defensive win shares, he's second in the country. Win shares per 40 minutes, he's fourth. Janai's fifth. Defensive box plus minus, Cooper Flag is sixth. Defensive rating in the country, Cooper Flag's second. He's only behind Tugler from Houston. So he, on a spreadsheet, Cooper Flag's a better player. If I presented you with all that, yeah. But
you have to view as part of that too, the competition in the ACC versus the SEC.
Sure.
And
yeah.
Cooper, I think Cooper Flag has 15 rebounds right now at in the game that's going on right now.
Yes, he's already got a season high for rebounds in this game against Virginia right now.
It's 17 and 14 or something.
Yeah, which but yeah, that's the thing. Virginia's fucking awful, and there's no Auburn doesn't have a Virginia on their schedule in the SEC. The worst team in the SEC is South Carolina, and that's still a better team than Virginia. And Janai actually struggled in the South Carolina game. That was one of the games he struggled this year. That was the game he got hurt in as well. But that's one of the only games he's played poorly in this year.
Yeah, it's a really close race, which is good for the sport. It's good for college basketball that these two guys are at the top of their game. And yeah, it's a great story. I've never seen before where Duke is the team that is getting the "you don't play anyone" shoved in their face, which is
Yeah,
certainly a new one.
to an SEC team.
Yes, to that kind of team, and yeah, that's certainly an adjustment. But yeah, it should. I mean, people might have already determined who, because some of these college voters are, as we've talked about, not on this, but just the Heisman voting. Some people just are like, after week 10, they're like, yep, Travis Hunter's going to win. I've seen enough. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, well, so I don't know if that's the same for this. But yeah, I think it's a great race. It's, pretty definitively the two best players. And yeah, it's great for the sport. And I think it's truly one of those situations where can't really complain if it's one or the other, because the impact they've had on their teams and just the sport at large. Yeah, it's been huge, and yeah, not much else you can really say. It's the two best players, and yeah, I wouldn't scoff at one or the other if it were Janai or if it were Flag. So in my opinion, you're basically deciding, like, are you going with the better straight up basketball player, Cooper Flag, who's got, probably better stats on paper, or, the best player on the best team in the sport right now, and the driving force of that team. So yeah, I wouldn't fault anyone for voting one way or another, as long as they didn't have a ridiculous Travis Hunter debate, behind that. But not that Travis Hunter didn't deserve Heisman, but still, yeah, just that discourse was completely ridiculous.
He didn't,
and,
but that's for
yeah,
another day.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah. So far, the discourse around this has been pretty good. Bruce Pearl's leaned into it online. He's tweeted about it.
Auburn has leaned out. Like, there was a game a few weeks ago, where I forgot who Duke was playing that day, but like as soon as the Duke game tipped off, like Auburn tweeted off their official account. I think Duke was playing somebody shitty that day. It might have been the day they played NC State or something, which actually ended up being a pretty close game.
They
But
can't kill NC State. Yeah.
but they tweeted like as soon as the Duke game tipped off, like they must have had scheduled tweet ready, and it was like Janai Broom, and it was like the best. It said like the best player in the country plays against the best teams and delivers on a nightly or something like that, and it's a picture of Broom, and they tweeted it like as soon as the Duke game tipped off. It's like Auburn's definitely leaning into it as a whole.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if this were the Heisman, I think Janai Broom would run away with it. I don't think this would be close. I think most of the conversation, this would not be a debate if some ACC guy was like running through that league and someone in the SEC was, having this kind of season with this kind of team. It wouldn't be a debate. But it is here. So I don't know if it's just because it is Duke and it is Cooper Flag. But yeah, if this were like the college football award, yeah, this would be over and done with. Like,
Jacob, who the fuck is this guy?
It's somebody from Colts Twitter.
Oh.
He's kind of a troll, but
Well, he's a Colts fan, so
yeah, he's also a Michigan fan.
Poor guy, Colts fan.
Who is this?
What a terrible existence. Jacob, what do you have anything on the Janai Broom Cooper Flag debate or any of that we've been talking about?
I don't really have much input there.
I thought you were going to add in that until further notice, Zach Edey is still the reigning player of the year.
I mean, he is, but that's besides the point.
It's funny. I think, hold on, let me check. I think Braden Smith is actually the only other player they're still offering odds on. Yeah, you can get Braden Smith at plus 12,000.
Yeah.
So he's the only other player theoretically in the debate. So you at least seems like you have third place on lock.
Yeah, he'll be a first-team All-American point guard.
Well, yeah, we'll have to get to Purdue too in Wisconsin, but yeah, obviously we like that was definitely the game of the year on Saturday though, and like I said, I think when Bruce Pearl retires, like great coaches, they retire, or players, and you always have like those crazy nugget statistics that you give out when they retire. And I think the fact that Bruce Pearl coached in 2-1-2 matchups at two different institutions, and they were both in-state games, and he was the road team in both of those and won both of them. It's just like that'll have to be just like a crazy nugget that gets
It's
thrown
just
out.
quite a stat. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's insane. That Bruce Pearl in 1-2 matchups in state went on the road twice and won both of those. Like no other coach in the history of college like that will never happen again. Like that's just mind blowing, and it's a credit and obviously you know Bruce and Auburn and at Tennessee yeah, I mean every team's gonna have. I mean I think Tennessee lost the next game after
They did.
they
They went to
won that
Vanderbilt
Memphis
on the
game.
road and lost. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, obviously you're going to take bad losses, but Bruce is one of the best coaches of all time, obviously, with those two wins under his belt at getting his teams up for big matchups like that. Because to go on the road and do that twice is incredible. And hopefully Auburn can avoid the letdown like Tennessee did in 08.
Yeah. I think they're good to go against Arkansas, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we got Arkansas and Georgia at home this week, so
yeah,
that should be two easy wins. But yeah, that'll be one that's talked about for a long time in the state of Alabama. That's a huge game, and I was listening to Parrish last week on his podcast, and he's a Memphis guy, and he's like, yeah, people in Memphis and the state of Tennessee still talk about that Memphis Tennessee game to this day. It's like an all-time game that people still talk about and reminisce about in that state. And you have to imagine this Auburn Alabama game is going to be the same way.
Well, until they play again, but
yeah,
because those
but they won't. They probably
yeah.
won't be 1-2 when they play again.
Yeah, unless Florida slips up. Yeah.
Yep. So that was a good one. So yeah, I think there's kind of two games that run together that I put in the title here, and I guess we'll talk about both of these and both of these teams. But the last two national champions in the sport, UConn and Kansas, both took pretty tough losses on the road to not great. UConn's definitely a lot worse than Kansas is.
Yeah.
But UConn went on the road and lost in overtime to Seton Hall, and Kansas went on the road and lost at Utah. And that Kansas Utah one, so I did not watch the UConn Seton Hall game. I did watch the Kansas Utah game, and let me just say that was Utah had a 6-minute scoreless stretch in the second half against Kansas, and Kansas could not capitalize on that at all, and still lost that game. Dickinson was horrendous in that game. That dude stinks. Kansas cannot score. They are
Dickinson sucks.
brutal. Kansas is a brutal watch. They're looking more and more like a first weekend exit. I don't see the path for UConn. I can see a turnaround still and them getting it together. Obviously McNeely had fucking 38 last week, and they got that win against St. John's. I can still see UConn figuring it out and turning it around and making a run in March, even with how bad that loss was to Seton Hall. But for Kansas that was atrocious, and I'm not going to be putting any stock in Kansas come March because they have not put it together. They've just been stuck in neutral as a team. They can't score. So yeah, and then UConn lost to Seton Hall. That's a quad 3 loss. That's brutal. So yeah, we got both of those to talk about. So we'll start with UConn because I know UConn's always a fun topic on here, with Matt being a UConn fan and Jacob's disdain from last year still lingering. So I'll start with the UConn Seton Hall game, and then we'll get to Kansas and Utah as well. But yeah, terrible loss for UConn. They were up 7 points with 45 seconds left,
I
then,
saw
yeah.
that. I had turned the
Second
game
half.
off, and I was shocked it was in overtime, and they pulled it out or they had pulled somehow. Seton Hall pulled that game out. It's been a very very difficult year for Seton Hall, and they needed a win like that at home, especially. UConn's had some defensive issues down the stretch. They've struggled with a lot of the bottom half of the Big East, and they finally got caught sleeping. So
So Seton Hall had one Big East win
yeah,
before this, and it was an overtime win
yeah,
against DePaul. And they go and beat UConn here. Just a mind-blowing letdown. I believe I was listening to a podcast earlier. That was the worst, like by the net, the worst loss a defending national champion has ever had. Like just by net rankings, like where the team was when they beat them. Yeah, this is the worst loss a defending national champion has ever. And it was funny enough. It was UConn before this. It was UConn in 2015. Uh, who the fuck did they lose? They lost to DePaul. Um, that was like the previous record for that in 15 when Ollie was there, and then I think the one after that was when UNC lost to Wofford in 18.
I remember that game.
But yeah. So this by the net is the worst loss the following season a defending national champion has ever had. So Matt, being a Husky fan, that's a tough one, and yeah, I'm
Pretty bad.
interested to
It's
hear
a
the
bad
defense
one.
here.
And yeah, they just again have had execution issues at the end of some of these games the whole year. Some of the turnovers at the end were pretty rough also, and seeing them be by some of their best players was also fairly discouraging. It was tough to watch. Yeah, McNeely was poor. That was probably one of Alex Caravan's better games. But yeah, it's just the team is objectively not very good right now. They're not getting nearly enough out of some of the guys who they had pretty high expectations of coming into the year. The Jalen Stewarts, the Jaden Rosses, those guys who, they didn't they didn't have anyone really transfer out. They only had one guy transfer out. These are guys who they put a lot of faith into. They want to try and build their program the right way, where, the guys who stayed get rewarded. And some of these guys just haven't, risen to the challenge yet. Solo Ball has. But yeah, some of these other guys just are not there yet. They might be next year, but right now they're not quite there. And, the guard play especially has really let them down. That's one area where, they excelled last year, have not had that quite yet this year. And yeah, the last minute of that game was a nightmare. Just the fact that it got to overtime, the fact that Seton Hall was in a position to win alone is inexcusable. Then they go ahead and actually win. That was pretty hard to watch. But this is a team that should be win an NCAA tournament game. Maybe give a 1 or 2 seed a game. We'll see. But yeah, they're just not as tough as the teams the last couple of years. They are not as big. They're not as good defensively, obviously, and yeah, it's been tough. But overall, yeah, it's disappointing. It's just all in all very disappointing to watch because the team had such high expectations coming into the season, and seeing where they are now. Yeah, it's not good enough, and so the
for
aspirations
Dan
of
Hurley,
winning the regular season are off the table.
For Dan Hurley, I just need to add, like, when he has his rant after the Creighton game, and like, if you're gonna walk the walk, or I mean, if you're gonna talk the talk, like, you gotta walk the walk. And then, like, it just goes back to our conversation last week, where he has a moment like that after that Creighton game, and then goes and loses to Seton Hall, and it's like, why is everybody talking shit about me? You know, like it's like, yeah, that's gonna keep happening, dude. Like, and I don't know, like, it's speculation here, and there's no way to know for sure. But it's like, it almost makes you wonder if all the other bullshit surrounding Dan Hurley this year is finally catching up to UConn as a team, and, like, is that hurting them in these situations where it's like Dan Hurley's just been in bullshit and controversy all year, and then he has that moment after the Creighton game that was talked about all week, and then they just go and lay an egg against Seton Hall. Like, maybe I'm reaching, maybe, like, but that's just speculation. Like, makes you wonder if there's something to that.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever affected the team. I mean, it definitely, like, he's been doing this for years, and this is just kind of who he is. And yeah, I don't think it's ever seeped into the team's performance. It certainly did not last year or the year before. And he's, like, just part of his personality. And yeah, I don't think it's has anything to do with the on the court play or anything surrounding that. It's just his thing, and I think he gets it. I think he knows, like, if you're gonna dish it out, you have to be able to take it back. You have to be able to, like, deal with, if you're gonna dish the shit out, if someone puts it back in your face when you lay an egg against the second worst team in the conference, you better be ready to do it.
The worst team in the conference.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in reality, yeah. Excuse me, DePaul, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, that's what makes this so crazy to talk about. It's like Seton Hall is fucking terrible, and it's like people who haven't had, like, a full scope of college basketball have seen, like, Seton Hall be good in years past. So they might think, like, oh, it's not that. Like, no, like, this is bad. Like,
they had a lot of their players rated from the portal. Like, they don't have the money to pay their own players. Like, their alumni aren't bought in, and that's kind of been why they've been the way they are this year. But that's a big win for them. Shaheen Holloway's kind of been is kind of almost on the hot seat at this point.
I mean, is it really a big win for them? Like, does it really matter when you're that bad?
I mean, it's a win. It's a win. It's not like it might be their best win they'll have. I don't think they're going to look back 5 years from now and be like, well, this was the day that it all turned for Seton Hall. No, I mean, Kevin Willard got out of there for a reason. And yeah, it's going to be a tough place to win because, as you said, the NIL collectives at Seton Hall are not going to be that of a bigger program. Just going to be a little harder to win there than some of these other schools. But yeah, I mean, good for you, Seton Hall, good win. But yeah, just embarrassing for UConn basically, and I think everyone around that program knows and gets that.
That's a bad enough loss. I haven't seen the bracket updates today. I'll have to go and look. I know Field 68 had their show, but, like, that's a bad enough loss. So that can drop you, like, an entire seed line. And I don't know if that reflected for UConn in the latest brackets, but, like, if they were projecting as, like, a 7 to 8 range before that, they got to be down in, like, the low 8, high 9 range after that loss. Because, like, we know when the committee's looking at these resumes, like, those quad 3 losses are just, like, shit stains on your shirt is what that you just, like, can't get out, that you just have to walk around with all year. And obviously, Matt, like, you're like, prime example of that. You're wearing a Wichita State shirt right now. Obviously, the case for Memphis that we saw. But, like, when you take those quad 3 and God forbid quad 4 losses, like, they're just awful, and, like, you can't rid yourselves of them. You're just stuck with them all year, and that's gonna really hurt UConn. And, like I said, like, that's the kind of loss that's the difference between you being a 7 seed and an 8-9. Like, that will literally drop you behind, like, multiple teams when the committee does their rankings and is deciding who's going to be in what spot, who's going to get on what seed line. Like, And that's the difference between, even if you're an 8-9 for UConn, we'll say, well, that's the difference between having to play Auburn in the round of 32 and having to play whoever the last 1 seed is
and
in the round of
or
32.
yeah, like that could be, Bama, Florida, Duke.
Yeah, like
could be any of those, and yeah, it's a tough spot. I mean, and the gap between the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds is not like huge, but it's big enough that the margin for error just is much bigger against the 2 seeds and the 1 seeds, I would say. So it's not one of those years where they're pretty close. The gap between like A&M and Florida and Auburn is pretty big, I think. So
yeah, it's a tough one for UConn, and then part of what I was talking about at the start, we'll talk about Kansas and Utah. A brutal loss for Kansas. You can't, like I said, if I'm looking at like Kansas and UConn, obviously they're the last 2 national champions in this sport, so it's a worthy discussion that they came in the year ranked 1 and 3 in the preseason AP poll, and they're both just sputtering right now. And like UConn, I can see a turnaround still. Like, wouldn't be surprised at all if they made a deep run in March. I feel, and if you guys disagree about how I'm comparing this Kansas and UConn situation, like, feel free. But like to give your, but like, I still feel like UConn can make a deep run. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn around. Kansas, on the other hand, I think Kansas sucks. Like, they can't score. Like I said, Utah had a 6-minute scoreless run in this game that Kansas just completely laid an egg and did not capitalize at all. Dickinson was terrible. Uh, yeah, just all around ugly, ugly. Like, Kansas losing to Utah isn't as bad as UConn losing to Seton Hall, but I came out of Saturday feeling a lot worse about Kansas than I did UConn, because that was just brutal game for Kansas. And I mean, this was Bill Self last year was, I think before last year even ended, was like talking about next year's team and excited about next year's team. And we heard a lot of like media talk about like how good Kansas is going to be next year, when they were struggling last year and they didn't have any depth. And then they came into this year the preseason number 1, the favorite to win the national championship, and they just don't have it. Like, they're I think 5th or 6th in the Big 12 now, and they still made it into that the top 16 that the committee put out on Saturday. But I don't imagine that they're there anymore in any bracket you look at. Yeah, Kansas is bad. Out of, what do you guys think?
Kansas, I mean, it's worse than I'd consider it a worse loss, just perception wise, because UConn they're just kind of an inconsistent team. Kansas is just actively underperforming, like compared to what their talent level was projected, at least at the beginning of the year. And was it on the road? Yeah, I was on the road. I mean, the Big 12 is a tough conference, but Utah isn't really one of those names of programs you expect to be great. That sure is not a name you expect to lose to. But yeah, Kansas is just underperformed. I just think they have a lack of leadership. Hunter Dickinson's not it. AJ Storr isn't it. Zeke Mayo isn't it.
They can't score. They can't score at all.
Yeah, just no leadership out there.
Yeah, it's I'm not like ready to write them off completely, but it is pretty concerning. That's not the Utah game I thought they were gonna have issues in. I thought they were gonna potentially go to BYU and lose. I didn't think they would go to Utah and get beat. It's a concern of more roster construction than anything. Gonzaga crushed them a year ago, and Bill Self kind of was talking about how he had to do a better job building a better team. which I thought they did. Going into the season, I liked a lot of what they brought in, but the biggest thing that it's just the pieces don't seem to really fit. And I don't want to like go all in on anyone in particular, but like AJ Storr, just I think that was a bit of an oversight on the part of Kansas to bring him in. AJ Storr is just like a hired mercenary scorer. Like he does not do really anything else. He just kind of wants the ball and he wants to create and score. That's kind of his game. I don't think Wisconsin, unless anyone, I mean, like Wisconsin is better without him.
Yeah, they're better. I was about
without
to say.
AJ Storr. Yeah, and I think that's a direct result of the kind of basketball they play now without him. And, seeing him now with Kansas is just a really weird fit there. I actually think they've gotten a lot out of Hunter Dickinson this year. I think he's played really well for them. But he did not play well against Utah. He was pretty bad.
I was thinking, like, another thing with Kansas and the roster construction you mentioned is, like, Badonga's actually been a lot better when he's been on the floor, and that's a big pickup for them. And, like, he was a non-factor for a while, and he's been better when he is on the floor. But then they're in a situation where, like, Badonga and Dickinson just, like, can't play together. Like, they're not a fit to play together, so, or, like, when they're on the floor at the same time. So it's like, when Dickinson's this bad and you have to get him his minutes, and then Badonga's playing better, but he can't play with Dickinson, it's just like you're in a pickle there, because it's like they're kind of stuck just rolling with Dickinson, but at the detriment of not playing Badonga, who's actually been a lot better.
Yeah, I think Dickinson's been really, like, I don't want to like throw it out all that he's been poor. I think Hunter Dickinson individually has had a really good season. I don't think it's just the problem is like he just does not necessarily like winning does not really follow in everything he does kind of thing.
He's been okay, but he definitely, like, to the level of like being one of the best players in the nation that was expected. And
I think he is that.
Like,
I think he is that level. Like he's playing, like he's third for KenPom's Player of the Year. Like he's been really good. It's just not to the level I think which they thought that winning would come with it per se. I think
he's just a guy that beats up on bad competition when they have the easy ones, and then like when they need him to do anything remotely clutch, he just doesn't have it. So I think that's where that stems from, where it's like KenPom's just basing that off like the numbers and metric, and that's not based off like opinion and watching the actual games.
Where, I mean, he hasn't like, and that's never really been his game. Like he's not going to carry, he's not going to carry a team the same way like a Cooper Flagg or Janai Barone would, or a Tanji from Wisconsin.
But that's the thing, is like Hunter Dickinson's there, and I think they're paying him like $2 million or something.
Yeah, he's
crazy.
not coming cheap.
Like, right? Yeah, and he has not lived up to what he was brought to Kansas to be, and I think that's where the criticism stems from. Like, has he been good? Yeah, but like he's been good in certain situations. In the big games, he hasn't showed up, and he hasn't been able to elevate Kansas. And now, like, we're seeing the worst 2-year Kansas run since Bill Self has gotten there, pretty much. And it all like circles around the time that Dickinson was brought there and paid a ton of money to lead this team.
Yeah, I mean, in that standpoint, yes, I don't think he has been good enough for them. He certainly does not elevate the team as well as he should be. I mean, scoring, they're not getting nearly enough out of him in the scoring department, probably. He's down from most of his career averages. But overall, the team just does not really fit. Like, it's a weird fit. None of the guards can really, like, outside of Zeke Mayo, none of them are really good shooters. Like, they're not really good shooting the ball. Rylan Griffin's okay. Like, KJ Adams is not a shooter. DeJuan Harris is not a shooter. AJ Storr's shooting numbers this year have been kind of rough. So yeah, it's just not like the parts don't really fit together. The vibe of the team seems pretty off. Just in some of these games. I mean, they clawed back. They, ended up tying the game on a 10-0 run at Utah. And then this was, just watching that game with some friends. I'm like, here it is. Here's the Kansas run. They're going to pull this one out by 5 or 6 points. And, yeah, they're just going to win this game in the road because that's what they do. And then they just did not. They got pounded just right
Yeah,
after
I mean,
they did
Utah
that. They
went
got crushed.
went on a 6-minute scoreless run in this game, and
Yeah.
basically gave Kansas like every runway to take control of this game, and they could never do it.
Yeah, and it's literally like, again, this is not like one of the greater Utah team you'll see. It's just Gabe Madsen, and like if you just stop Gabe Madsen, you essentially they are not going to score. So yeah, it just I know the altitude's a thing in Utah and everything, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not willing to give up on Kansas yet because the talent is so good, and there is a universe where they try to put some of this stuff together, but right now it doesn't fit. It's just not looking good for them. In their remaining games, I think the narrative on them will kind of change. If they win most of these games, they should be in good shape. I mean, they got at BYU next. After BYU, I'm pretty sure have Oklahoma State home, and they still have to play Arizona at home. They got to go to Houston, which is probably going to be miserable for them.
I hope to God they're favored tomorrow night in that BYU game. By the way,
Yeah,
I haven't
I
seen
would
a
say
line
Kansas
yet,
should probably be favored by like 1.5 or 2.5,
and
maybe.
I will slam BYU money line.
Yeah. I mean, you might be able to make good money here with. I mean, they still play Texas Tech. They play them at home, but yeah, I'm not willing to write Kansas off yet entirely. But
I just don't think they can
yeah.
score. Like that's the problem.
No, they
And it's
can't.
like,
I mean, defensively, they have not been bad because they still have like Hunter Dickinson has not been horrible defensively. KJ Adams is a stud. But yeah, the scoring numbers are bad. They are not a good shooting team. And they just the offensive flow of the game, like with Auburn, it's kind of like they got like 3 big ways to score. Auburn does. They have like 3 big forms of offense, and like Kansas is just like pretty convoluted. There's not really a like go-to guy. I think that's what they were hoping with when they got AJ Storr. They were like, okay, when all else breaks down, let's get the ball in his hands and see what he can do. But that hasn't worked either. And DeJuan Harris is not the guy who's going to go get you a bucket. And it's just the sum of the parts just are not really working together. So it's frustrating because the team is still really talented, but and they lost Zeke Mayo in that game, so hopefully he's okay. But yeah, they just need to really get on the same page offensively here pretty soon, or else it's going to be similar to how it was last year, where Gonzaga just continually ran the same set over and over and over again, and they just took Kansas apart, and that was it.
So let me end this segment. I'll say with I'll pose this as the question: if you had to put money on UConn or Kansas to get to the second weekend, who are you putting the money on? I'm saying UConn, pretty easily because I still see potential there, and we obviously saw it when they won at Creighton last week. I don't see that with Kansas really with this team. It's just not coming together for them. And I have a hard time seeing them making it past the first weekend. So I'll say UConn to answer that question, but what do you guys think?
I'd say UConn too. At this point,
it's hard because if you factor in the seeding, I would give Kansas an edge because if UConn is on the 8-9 line, I don't know if they're ready right now to take on that kind of a team. But that's a tough question. If you put a gun to my head, given the seeding and everything, I would say Kansas stumbles into maybe, if they're a 5 seed and they stumble into if a 4-13 upset happens and they stumble into back-to-back double-digit seeds, I could see that. But if you ask me who, the better staff and the better, which coach I trust, which, guys on paper per se, yeah, the UConn makeup, I could see that prevailing over Kansas. But yeah, if you put a gun to my head right now, if you factor in seeding and everything, I would probably say Kansas just because of, what they're looking at right now, just from a seeding perspective.
So Field of 68 has UConn as of today. They have UConn as an 8 taking on Nebraska in the first round, which is hilarious. And then the winner of that one playing Auburn. Don't want that at all. Actually, that's terrifying. And then they have, let's see, where's Kansas on here? They have Kansas as a 5, so they would take on either Michigan or Jacksonville State. They actually have UConn and all those teams in the same region in the South right now. But so I mean, if Kansas is taking on Michigan in the second, which obviously with the Dickinson factor would be an awesome
That'd be
matchup.
entertaining, yeah.
I'm slamming Michigan in that one.
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's a better chance that Kansas beats Michigan than UConn beats Auburn. So if it were that matchup, then yeah, I would probably take Kansas. But
all right. Next game to talk about, obviously on Saturday. I guess there's 2 more big ones Saturday, and then I'll kind of just start running through games so we can, because we're already over an hour. But the next one to talk about is Arizona, Houston, and Houston getting a 62-58 win there and season control of the Big 12 regular season pursuit. Arizona led at points in this game. I think they led by 9 at one point in the second half, and yeah, they couldn't close it out. And Houston really shut them down the stretch and was able to close this thing out. It's just that was a classic Kelvin Sampson Houston game where they just grinded Arizona down enough and were able to eke it out. And we know that's how Houston's going to play, and they were able to execute it here. And that was a big one because, I mean, we saw a lot of good teams falter on the road on Saturday. It was kind of what obviously with the notwithstanding Auburn, but other good teams, we saw a lot of teams go on the road and go down, and that was not it was a classic road spot for Houston to lose here. And obviously Arizona needed this one to keep pace for the Big 12 regular season, but that was not the case. Houston was able to grind them out and get a badly needed win. So I was trying to pull up the box score here real quick as it's lagging, but yeah, like I said, classic Kelvin Sampson Houston win. That's how we've seen them win over the years, and they were really able to stifle Arizona in the second half here and seize control of that one. God damn it, this thing's pissing me off. But good one for Houston. Finally, the box score pulled up. Thank God. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I mean, I kind of had this game picked out from the start. I figured Houston would win in a grind out game. Arizona, they kind of just didn't shoot the best. Against Houston, you have to make a decent amount of your shots, even through the tough defense. Caleb Love, he had 17, but he didn't shoot very great from the perimeter. Just your typical Caleb Love type game. Houston just kind of out hustled Arizona in that one. Let's see, Milos Uzin.
I was going to mention Uzan. He was a great pickup.
Yeah.
He was a great pickup from Oklahoma. He's been playing really good and been very productive for him, and he was awesome in this one. He was the reason Houston won this game.
Yeah.
They definitely nailed it with him. We see teams hit and miss with the portal additions, and that was a big hit for Houston out of the portal. He's been awesome.
Mm-hmm. So
this was yeah, just classic Arizona Houston type game you would expect from both them. And yeah, UConn has not had like a great season per se, but he started rough, but he's really picked it up for them of late. And yeah, that was definitely his best game of the season because they were really getting nothing all game. I mean, Sharp didn't give them anything. They got nothing from Emmanuel Sharp. Juwan Roberts was not like usual Juwan Roberts. And it was really just Uzan and Cryer, carrying them offensively. But yeah, credit to them. They're probably like maybe the only team that maybe them and Iowa State who are comfortable kind of grinding that game out that way. And honestly, I give Arizona some credit. That's not a style that they're comfortable playing. They were in control at parts of the game, and they just didn't shoot the ball well enough. They were like 5 of 23 from three. Just again, Caleb Love was on his usual Caleb Love arc. So that's a game that if it's at Houston, I don't know if it's particularly really that close. But yeah, credit to them. That's a game they grinded out, and some of these guys for Houston, Uzan is really just coming into his own at the right time for them.
We got the bad Caleb Love here, as Jacob was mentioning. Like, he ended up with 17, but was not efficient at all. Was 1 for 8
he's
from
not
3.
really ever, but
yeah, but like when he's not knocking down anything from 3, Arizona's not going to win very many games, especially against a team the level of Houston. And one they had to have. He pretty much just laid an egg here.
Pretty much, but, yeah. I mean, this Houston gets the win to be basically in full control of the Big 12 regular season now, and Arizona's really got their hands full right now. So if Arizona somehow survives this game, yeah, not sure what that'll hold there. Maybe they'll have a chance at the Big 12 regular season after this game, but
Arizona has a huge one right now.
Huge test in front of them with the Mighty Bears.
What's the score there right now? I still have State.
Arizona's up 19-18 right now.
On my screen it shows Baylor up on Arizona 20-19.
Well, there you go.
Where did these?
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah, so now Baylor's up.
What just happened with those fireworks? Did you guys see that?
I did not.
No, I'm on.
It just shot off fireworks. It just shot off fireworks behind me.
Oh, like, I did not see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it just started shooting off fireworks. Where the fuck
I don't think there are
fireworks
at Foster Pavilion, but
yeah, it just sounds like my whole thing turned into fireworks.
All right.
But yeah, obviously big win for Houston. Man, it's like they came into the Big 12 and like after all the years dominating the American, people came in and were like, "Oh, like how's Houston going to hold up in the Big 12?" And now they're closing in on 2 straight going
Houston
2 for 2
is
winning.
The Big 12, pal.
Yeah.
They are the conference.
Yeah, it's like and everybody was like, I mean, I just remember when they were dominating in the American and everybody's always like just doing the classic like, "Oh, Houston doesn't play anybody. They're not actually good. Like they fucking suck. They don't play anybody. Wait till they get to the Big 12." Like, well, they're 2 for 2 in the Big 12 now, barring a collapse down the stretch. And I mean, that's the same, like, thinking about that. Obviously, Memphis lost to Wichita State yesterday. It kind of goes along the same subject. Memphis has to get the fuck out of the American. I mean, unfortunately,
there were talks for them to join the Big 12. They should. I don't know why they wouldn't.
Because it's like when you play in that league, it's like the only thing you can do in conference play is hurt yourself. Like they they had a good non-conference and they're in good shape, and then their whole conference slate is just landmines. Like they have no ability to like add to their resume there, and it's basically like they need to run the table in the American to get a good seed line in March. And if they lose anything in the league, then they're gonna get a bad draw and fall a seed line because they just have no benefit of playing anybody tough there, and like it sucks for them. And like it's like if I was the Memphis athletic director, I would be pulling any possible string I
They
can to get the hell out of
it's
the
it,
American.
I think they are getting ready to leave. They are currently doing renovations to the Liberty Bowl.
They
Probably so.
should. I mean, and they should win out the rest of their games in conference play. But yeah, as you said, it's just basically like hold your breath. It's like just get through conference play, and yeah, it's yeah, they do need to get out of there. I don't know what the holdup is, but there's no reason that UCF should be joining the Big 12 before Memphis should.
Even
So
the Big East, I feel like they could get into the Big East if, like, I don't know what
I'm
the
sure they
football
could.
implications
I
of
mean,
that
yeah,
would
I
be,
don't
but
see that being an issue, but I don't know the politics behind all of it and whatnot. So who
I'd
knows?
say it's mostly a football decision at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, would the American like let them stay as like a football only member, and then they can go in the like join the Big East in basketball? Like, is that even a
Well,
possibility? Like,
it
I'm
is. I
not
mean, they do
involved in
that
that
with,
stuff.
like Navy does that. They have that with where, Navy's in the Patriot League for basketball and every other sport, and they play American for football. But I
Yeah,
don't know
I
how
mean,
that would work for basketball only.
yeah, that's just like I had to bring that up because it goes along with the Houston thing where they got out of the American and like they weren't scared to make that jump, and
Yeah.
it's paid dividends for them because like now they can go through a conference slate that's not just all landmines and like have actual resume building opportunities in the league, and just one loss isn't a complete backbreaker for them. But yeah, you guys got anything else on that one?
I do not.
All right, well,
Not on
Jacob,
Memphis joining the Big 12 now. But
I
good
know
win for
you,
the Shockers. Yes, well done by them.
Jacob. I know you have been dying to talk about the next biggest game that we still have to mention. Wisconsin 94, Purdue 84. Um, I wasn't able to watch a lot of this one. It was while I was driving, so I was actually watching the A&M Arkansas game. Most of that, I was pretty caught up in that. Uh, so I wasn't able to see a ton of it, but another great offensive output for Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Like I said, they're a team that has been flying under the radar. I feel
I,
like there hasn't been a lot of hype around them there, but they were a 3 seed when the committee put out their rankings on Saturday, and then they went and took care of business against Purdue. Tanji was out of control in this game.
yeah.
Kaufman Wren was awesome for Purdue too. Good battle there, and Wisconsin was able to get a big. Wisconsin's offense has been awesome this year.
It is
Like
otherworldly. It was competitive at first, and then Tanji just took the game over in the second half. He just drove at will. There's some foul trouble on TKR and Caleb First that he could just drive at will to the rim. But yeah, it really reminded me of Johnny Davis a few years back. He did that to Purdue at Mackey, just kind of took over the game out of nowhere. It's a very your typical Wisconsin team that's just otherworldly on offense. But I think they might be the best team in the Big Ten currently.
yeah, I
I
would
don't
agree with
disagree.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's still 2 games out. Michigan still holds the lead there in the Big Ten. But yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's been awesome, and I mean, they're going to be in good shape come March. Like they got they have a lot of quality wins. Like I said, they were on the 3 line when the committee put out their rankings on Saturday. So I mean, they got a month left to take care of business there, and maybe they can do enough to get up to a 2. But yeah, Wisconsin's in good shape, and this is, I mean, probably the best team Guard has had there. Like, I think this team is better than the Johnny Davis team, even though that team won the Big Ten regular season. I think this is a better overall team than that iteration of Wisconsin. Yeah, probably the best team Guard has had here. Hell, unless I'm missing something, you guys can correct me on that. But uh, yeah, they're really good, and they're flying under the radar. There's not a lot of national hype or anything for them right now.
Yeah, and Guard's done a really good job with that team.
Mhm.
He's this is, you know, not that he's going to win National Coach of the Year, but or Big Ten Coach of the Year for that matter. But he has done a really good job with that Wisconsin team. So yeah, as for that game as a whole, that was a fun game to watch. Neither of those teams had really any desire to defend the other. Except I will say Wisconsin did do a really good job on Braden Smith. They defended him well. They made it abundantly clear that he was not going to be the one to beat them. They basically allowed Trey Coffin-Run to do whatever he wanted to do, and he did. But yeah, they basically took Braden Smith out of the game. Purdue didn't shoot bad. It was a good shooting game from them. I don't know. They were around 50% from three in that game. They shot the ball well. They just really did not hold up their end on defense, and John Tonji just took over the game completely.
I regret getting too caught up in that. I was invested in that Arkansas A&M game after fucking Cal calls the turnover and then kicks the scorers table. It's like I probably should have just flipped that one off while I was driving and put the Wisconsin Purdue on instead. But I was invested in that A&M Arkansas game probably a little too much. So I unfortunately had to miss this one.
Purdue had a dry spell in the second half, and that kind of just sealed the game for Wisconsin. Braden Smith didn't do much in the second half. TKR took over. Fletcher Lawyer had a good game. CJ Cox played good. Colvin finally hit a 3, hit like 2 or 3 at the end of the game. Him and Cam Heide have been kind of suspect down the stretch. Kind of have contributed a lot to some of Purdue's losses here. If they get going, we'd be a lot different team, but that remains to be seen. But Wisconsin, they just outshot us. John Tonji, man.
Yeah, Tonji's a machine. Max Klesmit's solid. They have a really fun team. I don't think. That's huge for Wisconsin. Purdue's probably not thrilled with how they played defensively. I'm sure there's some version where they're probably like, if we get more than 6 points from Braden Smith, we probably have a better chance to win that game. But yeah, give Wisconsin credit. That was a really fun game to watch. Just both teams shooting the lights out. Wisconsin is just an offensive juggernaut. They are really fun to watch when they get going. So they have flown under the radar quite a bit. Probably mostly because, they're not the defending national runner-up like Purdue, and they don't have the, shiny new object of a coach, how Michigan has. And they don't have Tom Izzo coaching their team. So they have kind of flown under the radar nationally for sure. But they're going to surprise some people if they're not taken seriously. Because that was just, they're the real deal scoring. They have to shore up a couple things defensively, but give them credit. Almost putting up 100 points at Mackey that's a big deal.
Jacob, what's the concern level for Purdue right now? Because in our group chat, obviously you're pissed after the game. Don't blame me. Like, Purdue sucks. It's over. But a couple days removed, what's the concern level for Purdue? Like, Purdue was still on the 2 line when the committee put out the rankings Saturday, and I don't imagine that this knocked them down off of that or anything. So, like, still in good shape for the season, even though obviously it was a disappointing one. Like, where are you at with Purdue right now?
I mean, I'm in, like, I think we are still solidly a Sweet 16 team, but what concerns me is our lack of bench scoring. Like, outside of like
Yeah,
TK,
that's what I would say as well.
If someone gets in foul trouble, if TKR gets in foul trouble, or Caleb First gets in foul trouble too, like, our lack of depth is just killing us. Not having Daniel Jacobson there, not having another go-to guard off the bench that can score, because Miles Colvin and Cam Heide have been disappointments so far this season. They started off decently and kind of just fell apart after the tournament in late November. So it's just kind of been hope and pray people don't catch on to Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer trying to take them away. So that's my primary concern. And another thing, after that Wisconsin game, our defense has got to be better. That and the Michigan game, we got to key on those perimeter guys, not just let them have wide open shots.
Yeah, the depth is definitely their biggest concern. They just do not get enough out of that unit on the bench. And some of these guys are getting, like, I wouldn't say worn down is the right word. Like, Braden Smith played 40 minutes. Not sure if TKR got to 40 minutes, but he got really close if he didn't play the whole game. So at some point, I mean, looking at the end of the Michigan game, like, Braden Smith is literally willing them back into the game, hitting some huge shots. There's just got to be an element of, and like at that point, TKR had fouled out of the game. It's got to be like, can he get any help in those moments? Is there anyone else besides those two who's gonna, hit some big shots, come up big for them on the offensive end? That could be Fletcher Lawyer, but yeah, right now, I mean, Caleb First is the foul trouble's kind of a concern. But aside from that, yeah, I would say right now, probably a Sweet 16 ceiling team until they just, run into a team that can really wear them down, match up well with the guards, get the bigs into foul trouble. That's going to be, that's where and why it would probably end for Purdue when it does.
I know our starting five is solid. They have been since the end of December. But like, our bench is just a lot of young guys, a lot of youth, and just question marks, at this point. So we need to.
Yeah.
I know. I'm hoping Cam Heide and Colvin can pull out. Get it together. I don't know if we can, or if it's too late in the season.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean,
yeah.
Losing some bench guys, losing Gillis to Duke. I don't know how much Ethan Morton would have played, but he's at Colorado State now. And yeah, so, they're really only capable of going 7 deep right now, probably. I don't see Raleigh Burgess playing, hopefully, for them very much minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the biggest concern for them right now is depth, because the starting five is good. But yeah, depth is going to be what really holds them back.
I just realized why your boy commented this, because like I was like been thinking about this for an hour. Like, I just realized my pillow was in the shot with the 48 on it. I was just like, I've been like, where did Jimmy Johnson come into this? And I just realized that. I'm sorry, I was to throw off the discussion, but I was like, I just had the light bulb go off in my head thinking about that. Yeah, no, go ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your Purdue discussion. I don't have a ton to add. I'll just say like Purdue's still going to get a good draw. Latest bracket today. I've been referencing this a lot because it's better to use as it gets closer. So, and I'm using field of 68s. So they actually had Purdue on the 3 line, and they would match up with Montana in the first round, and then either Mississippi State or Drake in the second round, which either of those are like take the under in that game.
Yeah.
And then that would put them in the Sweet. Oh my God! Like, so like this could like if this was the actual draw for Purdue. If I'm a Purdue fan, like I feel pretty good about this because they
And it's
got, like I said, the Mississippi State Drake in the second round, and then Sweet 16. If seed lines played out, would be Tennessee. So like that's a good draw for Purdue because I mean those are all just grinders, and I mean that's if I'm Purdue and I have to play against teams that are offensively challenged, that's probably where they're best suited.
And another thing that helps us in the tournament is one of the like Sweet 16 sites, I think, is Indianapolis.
So
Yeah,
like
it would be if we get one of those high seeds, we'd be in Indianapolis, Milwaukee, and Indianapolis.
Mississippi State would be a tough matchup for them because the guards on that team would be kind of a handful. But yeah, they should. That's one that if they play Drake, that would be a pretty favorable draw for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll roll through the rest of the day. Like I said, I think we've hit all the games that we should probably like deep dive on, and then the rest of them we can just kind of hit them as we go. But just first one to bring up, like not really a like important game to talk, but like first game of the day to tip along with A&M Arkansas. Clemson beat the fucking shit out of Florida State. And it's like, if they were going to have the letdown after the Duke and Carolina, like going on the road to Florida State, like this might have been one where you're like, yeah, I can see it. And Clemson just like decimated Florida State. It was 72-46. Just Florida State scored 19 points in the first half. So that was an absolute fucking throttling. So I wanted to reference that. The A&M Arkansas one, Arkansas hung around. They were competitive in this game.
Got to cover.
Yeah, barely, but yeah, they did.
Yeah.
It's not a bad loss for Arkansas. They go on the road to a really good A&M team. Not according to Jacob, an overrated A&M team, but no, A&M's good. They can defend everybody, and they fucking drug Arkansas into the mud like they do everybody, and Arkansas held their own here. Like I said, main thing that I can't get out of my head from that game is that so Cal was calling a play. He was talking to one of the guards. I can't remember which one he was talking to. In the middle of the play, I think it was Thero, and so whoever had the ball passes it to the guard that Cal is talking to, and the ball goes out of bounds. So Cal was pissed after that happened, and when Arkansas or A&M was bringing it back down the court, Cal just gives a full on like boot, like kicks the fucking scorer's table. That was hilarious.
Yeah, Cal's been nothing short of entertaining when he coaches still, but he gave it to him after the game also. So hopefully they respond because they got quite a test coming up here.
What did he say after the game? I didn't see his comments.
He's just talking about like how he's frustrated, calling the team soft in some areas and everything, and doing the whole like generational routine kind of with like, we used to be able to coach these guys harder, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
that's
Cal. All I had to say to that is like Bruce Pearl and Tom Izzo both had coached just as hard as you.
This is the other game that I thought needed deep diving was Illinois, Michigan State, particularly for the only reason that Illinois ended the game like with like -2 points because they got a goaltending overturned or something.
The last 5 minutes was a 13 to -2 run.
Yes, yeah.
Hey, that whole game was an Illinois special right there.
Yeah,
from the start,
had the Shannon banner raising gone wrong,
upside down, and get throttled.
What is going on in Illinois?
Pounds you by like 15. Hold them to 65.
Dude, they had that game. Like, they controlled most of that game. And then, like, yeah, they end the game on a 13-2 run. Like,
yeah, that was pretty rough. That's a tough one for, and that's the win that I'm pretty sure that Izzo broke the Big Ten record on.
He broke
yeah, it was.
Bob Knight record.
Yeah.
And
Gosh.
Illinois was controlling most of that game. Like, it seemed like they had that thing pretty well clear. And then, like, yeah, like, they just completely, like, I didn't see the end to see what happened because, like, Illinois was in control most of that game. So I kind of started flipping around and seeing other games and, like, never returned to it.
Think again.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell happened here?
Yeah, they got, like, Jackson Kohler, like, basically going perfect from beyond the arc. And, like, that was not a good game. Like, Yaka Jonas had a pretty mediocre, like, by his standards. He had 17, but it was not, like, the best output. And it's not like it won't get much better here for Illinois. They still got to play Duke, like, at MSG. They're probably going to get, like, Duke might put up 100 on them the way they're
Illinois is playing
right now.
Duke?
Yes.
When?
It's a very weird kind of game, but they are playing Duke.
It's like some random. I don't know why they're scheduling that.
What is this? Like,
it's in.
This
Yes,
is
I have
news to
never.
me.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's in the heart of conference play, but on Saturday they play Duke.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
at
it's
MSG.
like the only other one I can think of like this was it last year or 2 years ago when Kentucky played Gonzaga in the middle of conference play? Like,
that was last year. Gonzaga went 2-up. Or no, I think that was last year too. I'm not sure, but
Kentucky played at Seattle.
Yeah, they did a home and home. They did a home and home where, like, Kentucky refused to go to the kennel. And they had to go.
Cal refused to go to the kennel.
Yeah, they had to go, like, downtown Spokane to play there.
It was in Seattle. I thought, like,
I don't know where they. I thought it was, like, in somewhere in Spokane, but I could be wrong. Because it's usually, like, the NCAA tournament site where Spokane hosts. But yeah, all things considered, it's not getting any easier for Illinois now. Like. Pretty sure they still have to play Wisconsin, Duke, Michigan, and Purdue. I'm pretty sure. So they are in for it. I don't know where they're sitting now in bracketology. I'll have to check the field of 68 or Lenardi here, but yeah, they are kind of toast coming down the stretch here. Like,
you were asking about Illinois.
Yeah.
I can give you that real quick if because I had it. They have them as a 6 right now in the West. They have them playing Wake in the first round.
Yeah, that's I don't know how I feel about that one, but that seeding's probably not going to get better. They're going to need to go on some type of run in Big Ten tournament play because right now they are probably, like, at Wisconsin. That should be a loss. That neutral game against Duke at MSG, that should be a loss. They play Iowa. Then they got Michigan, Purdue to finish off the season. Like, I don't know how many of those games they win, but they need to win, like, one of those games. Like, their last game, they play Purdue at home. They probably need to win that game. Like, they probably need to beat Purdue at home. So, yeah, outside of that, not looking good.
Are you saying that's to make the tournament? Like, do you think they can fall that far?
No, I don't think they're falling out of that. I just think, like, there are people who had pretty high expectations for them, like, as a potential, like, second weekend NCAA tournament team. Someone who could have won the Big Ten tournament or the Big Ten regular season. And now they're just, like, conceding these games to Rutgers and Nebraska and going, giving up 13 to -2 runs at home.
The Shannon, the jerk. How do you do? Like, how did does nobody check it? Like, what? Like, how does that even happen?
I have no idea. It's some would argue, because Shannon, obviously, who has been acquitted of any wrongdoing, at the same time, some, Big Ten fans, like I'm sure Purdue fans or Michigan State fans or Michigan fans would be like, yeah, that's perfectly fitting for him. Like, of course he gets his jersey hung upside down kind of thing. Because that's just like kind of, that speaks to, what he was when he was at Illinois. I don't know. I
I
always
mean,
thought he was really fun to watch there, but yeah, the Big Ten fans probably are like, yeah,
that's just such an Illinois thing to have happen for their Twitter fan base.
All right, other games to note Saturday. Just keep rolling through the slate, but not a ton after the big ones. Like not a ton here to like that. I feel like needs much mentioning. But Baylor got a huge overtime win
giant
against West Virginia.
Huge. Were they -8.5 favored to win that game at home?
The streets are saying they were, but
they were, pal. They were, because some people had Baylor -8.5, and some people were very passionate about that Baylor -8.5. But, and you know what? Some were
did not read the group chat at all this weekend. So
and some people were saying that West Virginia is a really good team, and they kept saying, look at their wins. Look at who West Virginia's beaten. This is a really good team. And
I didn't read the group chat this weekend, but were the same people saying that Alabama was just going to absolutely obliterate Auburn?
Oh, the same people were saying that, yes. Huge Nate Oates fan, yes. But, yeah, that was a very frustrating Baylor game, to say the least. They did win because I'm pretty sure they shot, I think 32 free throws to win. I think Langston Love was 12-12 from the line. But yeah, they get a huge, giant tournament ceiling, some are saying, win for the mighty Bears over West Virginia.
Tournament ceiling.
Yeah, classic North Chatham-Mere double-double for Baylor, but yeah, was paced by just pretty much Robert Wright, and yeah, he was about the only one who played like a really good game. Langston Love played a decent game, but yeah, they only went 7 deep. So yeah, beating a great West Virginia team. All the Baylor points in overtime were free throws. So yeah, that was a huge win, and they need to start playing with a huge sense of urgency because they're down 8 to Arizona at halftime right now. So,
another game to mention. Georgia got taken care of at home by Missouri. Georgia should be out now. They're out in the field of 68 one. It feels like Georgia has, like, they were in solid shape to make the tournament, and it seems like they've just completely taken a shit at every opportunity they've had at home to get a big win for the resume. They've laid an egg, so they're gonna have a real uphill climb down. I don't think they have a ton left in the SEC.
No, Georgia's not really packed with a resume saving schedule, so they're gonna need to probably win a couple games in Nashville.
I mean, they come here Saturday, so that's a loss.
I mean, And they were not really competitive with Missouri. So
and this was this was the one they needed. This was their last big home opportunity signature win.
Yeah.
And they just completely
on this halftime report they're showing right now that they're the second team out. So
okay.
Yeah, that's probably deserved. They should not be in.
I mean, let me pull up the schedule real, because I don't think they have a ton left. I know they come here.
Had Ace and Hill made that shot, it's probably maybe a different discussion. But yeah,
so they got at Auburn, home Florida, at Texas, at South Carolina, and home Vanderbilt. So it's like they're not going to win at Auburn. So I mean,
I don't see
that's
them
like,
beating Florida either.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That home one against Florida, like that might be their last real shot to get in, is if they win that one somehow. If they can scratch that one out at home, maybe. But that's probably their last real shot to get a resume building win. So yeah. So that one was disappointing. Yeah, I was hard on Georgia plus 2.5 in that one. That was a frustrating one.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. I'm scrolling through, so I'll throw one out. If a Duke absolutely destroyed Stanford.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to talk about the Tennessee and Vanderbilt game a little bit.
Yeah, good call. I forgot to bring that one up. And also the Egg Bowl is also there to talk about.
Egg Bowl.
But yeah, Tennessee, that was a good comeback win for them against. I mean, I say good comeback. Like they shouldn't have been in that position to start with, but like at home. But yeah, they avoided disaster against Vandy.
I think the inverse of what happened in the Vanderbilt game happened Saturday. Just the home advantage carried them. They had an explosive second half. Zakai Ziegler had a rare 22-point game.
Yeah, he saved them.
Yeah.
I mean, he pretty much bailed them out of that one.
Yeah.
We had the Egg Bowl too. Mississippi State went on the road, won against Ole Miss. That was a fun one, just like the other games that those teams have played this year. Very competitive. Good watch there. Big win for Mississippi State. Two really good teams there in the SEC where they're both in kind of that same tier, like right below those top teams in the SEC. But Chris Jans and Chris Beard have both built awesome programs there at those schools, and I think they'll both be competitive in March. So, like, not a game there that's like hugely important. Whereas, like, I don't think that game changes a lot for either of those teams. I think they both kind of are where they are, but obviously a big one in that state. And but yeah, that was a fun game to watch. So worth mentioning that one. I'm just scrolling through, and if there's something to bring up, I'm gonna just throw it out. North Carolina. The fact we went from like Auburn, Alabama, and they're like, "Thank you for tuning in. Next, we're gonna take you to Syracuse to see North Carolina versus Syracuse."
I mean, it is sad because that used to be like a huge game.
Oh, when Syracuse first joined the ACC too, it's like, shit, like that's one of those matchups.
Boeheim was still in his prime.
Yeah, that was like Boeheim, and then CJ Fair was there in their first season in the ACC. Boeheim got kicked out at Duke. I mean, like, yeah, those used to be two of the biggest brands in the sport, and now, like, I could not care any less. Like, just like, wow, I cannot believe. Now, the game itself wasn't horrible, but at the same time, just those teams, like, how do you get up for that game? So it's sad to see, like, how far those programs have just fallen off completely. Carrier Dome, or it's not the Carrier Dome now, but yeah, it just that used to be an awesome building for games, and now it's a tough one, tough program to watch, and UNC. I'm just tired of having some of these people, particularly on a certain network, jam down my throat that they should, like, hold on, we're not out of the woods yet here with UNC. Being out of the field. I'm like, yes, we are. We are done. We are done. We are done. We are so done. Like, I'm done with them. I'm done with Pitt. Enough. Like, I don't want to hear about these teams anymore. Like, get them in the NIT.
I'm not sure what network you're referring to.
I'll give you a hint. It's not Field of 68. Yeah.
Well, Goodman's the one who tweeted that after the Alabama Auburn game ended. He was like, "We're really going from this to UNC Syracuse." Like,
Like,
that was
jeez,
fun.
man.
Um,
Tough.
Wake Forest got a big win at
Yeah.
SMU. That's a big
Yeah.
one for the bubble. SMU should be out. They haven't beat anybody. Like, they've taken care of business and all their shitters, but
Yeah.
yeah, they haven't beat anybody. They've won all the games they're supposed to win. So I mean, they're hanging around the bubble because SMU is like the team this year to me that represents how bad the bubble is this year the most. Where it's like I do not win, and they're talking about expanding the tournament. Like that conversation was
Yeah.
happening again. It's like no, I don't want to see SMU play. Like go to the NIT SMU. Like do not want any part of them in March Madness. Like, and yeah, that one against Wake, they both needed that one bad. Wake was able to get the win. So a big one for them on the road to really solidify it. Jacob, do you want to talk about ETSU Chattanooga?
Sure. I wasn't expecting much. Two starters were out for ETSU. They hung in there for a lot of the game. Shout out Kumari Peterson. He had 31
huge
points.
game. Goodness.
He's had a lot of moments where he's had to carry us this year, when there's been injuries or he should be the SoCon Player of the Year, honestly. Although it should be between him and Seymour, but Seymour injury may hinder him. But hopefully we can get healthy this week, because I know they're very much like Purdue, not a very deep rotation. Most of our scoring comes from 3 or 4 guys, so just a tough one with those injuries. But I'm proud of us for hanging in there at least.
Well, San Diego State beat the fuck out of Boise State, and that's usually a really competitive game when those two teams play. And Boise was kind of like they're out now. Like I mean, they were out before, but like any shot they had at large, they needed to pick it up quick. And they're like, this was one they needed bad. And it's of note too because like Boise usually plays. Like Boise won there last year, and like I said, those matchups are usually really close and really competitive when Boise and San Diego State played. And San Diego State ran them out of the fucking gym this time. And then on to Sunday, nothing else from Saturday I thought was worth mentioning.
Yeah, the only thing from Saturday you could probably bring up there is like Villanova followed up, like beating Seton Hall with a horrendous loss against Providence. That was pretty rough, and I do not know if Kyle Neptune should be around next year. If you ask many Nova people, they're pretty out on him, and that's just kind of an unacceptable result for them. So,
yeah,
I know we forgot to mention Texas upset Kentucky.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
that was probably the last one.
Yeah, not sure how much of an upset that was. Texas was favored going into that game.
Trey
the
Johnson
line closed with I think it was Texas -3.5, so they were favored. Yeah, Trey Johnson really just 32 for him. Just carried him.
Tremont Mark had 26 as well.
I mean, it's like, I mean, what we said though, like we knew they were kind of screwed without Lamont Butler, and he didn't play in this one, and it showed. And they were still competitive without him, which credit to them for going on the road and hanging around in this one without Butler, because it was always going to be an uphill climb for them without him, and they were still competitive here.
Yeah.
And then and then Sunday we already mentioned Wichita State beating Memphis, and that was the only point I had on that game earlier. That Memphis is just they have to get out of the American, but we had 2 good ones Sunday. First one was I was at the 500, so I didn't see either of these games, but Michigan beat Ohio State by 3. I know that was a pretty competitive one. Jacob was obviously cheering on Ohio State, so I saw him talking about it in the group chat a little bit. I literally have nothing to add on either of these games because I was at the track all day yesterday. But that game, but you guys got anything?
That Ohio State hung in there. They honestly should have pulled away. They should have took the lead. They had a couple missed baskets and just poor transition buckets, or let Michigan get a couple transition buckets to close it out. It was frustrating to watch because Ohio State against us, they made like step back contested threes against Purdue. Against Michigan State, they had a wide open layup and miss it to pretty much seal the game. What's his face? Bruce Thornton had a wide open layup to tie the game with like 2 seconds left in the game, and I think it was a close one. It was a close one. But what a horrible layup by Bruce Thornton there.
Yeah, they
Michigan snuck by the skin of their teeth in that one,
which has been the story for them most of the season. They have been nails in just games decided by 4 or fewer points. They've been awesome with that. Yeah, it's another big win for Michigan. Another, great Danny Wolf game. Another great Golden game. I think it's, the fact that they can play those two bigs together at the same time is cool, and they make it work. And yeah, they're still really tough to guard without, as we've talked about on here before, without, a point guard really running the show in that offense. They still find ways to win, and yeah, give them credit. They're going to be a tough out for someone. They have earned every bit of the Big Ten regular season title when they inevitably probably win it. But yeah, Danny Wolf is such a stud. I love watching Danny Wolf play. Just really fun player. Enjoy him while you can, because he'll probably be a very late first round pick in June this year, I would imagine. So fun player, Danny Wolf, and yeah, that's the last or the first Ohio State Michigan game since, of course, the flag planting incident. So I didn't know if anything would carry over into the basketball side of things. I did not. I was like, this one was on CBS, so Gus was not on the call for this one.
Damn.
Yeah, so I didn't know if there would be any flag planting nonsense there, because Michigan, did win there. But it's obviously not as charged for basketball. But I didn't know if someone was going to try anything, and like Gus and Joel Klatt or Jack Sawyer would come out of the stands or something and take out Dusty if he tried to do anything.
I said at first that there was only 2 games talking about Sunday. There's 3 left. There's more. Like
multiple.
Like I said, I was out of the loop, so like I forgot all these good games were happening yesterday. So there's really 3 more big ones to mention. But Bradley beat Drake at Drake.
Yes. Yeah.
Super. I didn't see any of these games yesterday, but that's a huge win for Bradley. And luckily for Drake, even though like that's a good team, so it's not going to be like a bad loss for them like most games in that league would be. So like they'll still be in good shape, and the bubble is also so fucking bad that Drake can probably take on this one and maybe another loss and still be in good shape. Like if they're going to lose one in the league, like this was the one to lose, because Bradley's a good team. But at home, they still want to get it done there. And 2-point game, 61-59 for Bradley. You guys, like I said, I wasn't able to see it at all, so like I'm gonna act like I have some great contribution on that one. But did you guys see it? Do you have anything for that one?
Yeah, not a horrible amount. It was just really back and forth for that entire game. Just sometimes the tempo that they want to play at, if you're not a total sicko, can be pretty exhausting for some, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge win for Bradley, like at Drake. Obviously that, unfortunately for Drake, that's Mo Val's probably going to be a one big conference, and they'll have to settle that in Arch Madness. But yeah, Bradley's just a, tough. Both of those teams are really like tough, grimy, gritty teams. And yesterday, Bradley just shot really well from three. They had a good 3-point shooting day. Duke Dean was solid for them. So, yeah, that game, it has big implications and everything, but ultimately, the one who wins the last matchup between those two is gonna, be the happiest because it'll probably be for, champion of Arch Madness when they play again.
I forgot to mention for Saturday, by the way, but Kansas State lost at BYU. That was a big one for the bubble. And Kansas State is about to lose again to Utah.
Yes.
They're down 3 with a minute and a half left. So,
Doug has
no,
taken
because
some horrendous shots. Yeah, it's been hard to watch.
They were rallying. That's why it's of note because they were rallying to make a bid at the tournament, and they probably can. Yeah, and Utah's up 5 now, so looking like they're going to lose here. And they, like I said, they probably could not really afford to lose both of these games in Utah, and that's what they're on the brink of doing. So that's probably going to end Kansas State's chances of getting an at-large bid unless they just run the table or something like that.
They will probably need to make the Big 12 championship game, you would think.
So that one's up. No, you forgot to mention that one for Saturday. Also yesterday, St. John's beat Creighton 79-73.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Good bounce back win for Patino. What you guys got for that one? By the way, Kansas State is getting out rebounded. 20 offensive rebounds is 21-5 for Utah.
They're horrendous. Coleman Hawkins has been a total no-show, and Doug McDaniel's shots just has took a horrible step back 3 and then gave one up on the other end. That's rough. But I digress. That was the best game of the day yesterday, I thought. Drake Bradley was fun, but it was St. John's was, not that they came back from a huge deficit, but it was still decent comeback win for them. That was one of Ashworth's better games for Creighton, and St. John's did a really good job on him. And I still question how St. John's will score on teams that really commit to just kind of sitting in a shell against them. But it's Rick Pitino. That's the most impressive turnaround job maybe that any coach has had here, and it's just a fun game to watch. It's that's a fun environment to watch when St. John's is playing really well. Ryan Kalkbrenner went out with an injury probably halfway through the second half, and then he came back. Fanta was awesome on the call. He made the whole Willis Reed comparisons and everything with Kalkbrenner, and he's the best. Love Fanta, but
Fanta's a gem.
Yeah.
He's on After Dark tonight, by the way. I'll probably watch that when we get off here.
And Rick Pitino last year was basically considering suicide after every game he coached with St. John's. Publicly, he was I am just so fucking miserable. I'm unhappy, everything. And after their game yesterday, he's almost in tears talking about how much he loves Kadari Richmond and how great of a leader he is and how great of a player he is and how much he's developed, how much of a professional he is. He was my gosh, this guy loves his team now, and he's talking about Edgefor the same way after the game. So it's I don't know if he's been taken for granted or kind of been underrated over the years now, because he hasn't really gotten his due because he's done it in a little bit of a more underhanded way, if you will, than some of the other coaches of his time. You're not underhanded or sleazy, but he's just a basketball coach, and he looks for whatever ways to win, however ethical they may have been over the years. But he's done a really good job with the St. John's team, and they're going to win the Big East, and they deserve it. Regular season goes to them, and he's like I think he and Dan Hurley are the two best coaches in the sport for sure. And like he's
Excuse me?
yeah, well, yeah, I know. And yeah. Only one of them said yeah. Oh, yes. Well, got
Yeah.
the Bruce
But,
Pearl behind you. Yeah, I was like
yeah. I was about
but
to say, let's show some respect. Did you see Clay Travis the other day fucking getting blasted? Because
yeah.
he said, like, I loved it. He's like, I think pretty clearly Bruce Pearl is the best coach in the sport. And people were having a fucking fit.
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun to watch. It's just that was a fun, usually last year I went to St. John's UConn, and that was probably like maybe 70-30, 60-40 UConn. And like in there yesterday, it kind of seemed like, St. John's was, most of those fans were wearing, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
What the fuck?
Utah is choking like horribly right now.
Jesus.
Sorry. Goodness gracious. This
fucking
is
logo. Oh my gosh.
Jeez. Yeah, sorry, I just got
holy fuck.
Yeah.
Are you watching that
Tang
too,
is
Jacob?
fuming.
I am not. Oh no, I have it pulled up.
Yeah, it's a fucking logo 3. Like,
yeah. Tang just made like a full-on line change, offense for defense here. But yeah, he just drilled that 3. Then they
Tang
got
started doing the thing like after he hit that 3 where he just starts walking back and forth like really quick. Oh my god.
Goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, so, when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So
I'm about to say,
okay. Yeah. Stand by for that one. But yeah.
Yeah, Patino's awesome.
All the flowers to Patino, yeah. He deserves that. So happy for him. And yeah, St. John's is dangerous. It's going to be a rarity if they run into a team a better coach than them. But the 3-point output is not promising for them. That is one area where if they lose, it will probably be because the team just sits in and dares them to shoot those threes. So we'll see, but should be now about just praising them and how good they were in that game. So yeah, credit to them.
Yeah, and then the last game of note to send us home. Oh no, one more before I get to the one of note.
Yeah, there's a.
You guys saw who got a win yesterday, right?
I just saw it.
Oh, Doug Gottlieb got himself one yesterday.
He sure did.
The Green Bay Phoenix.
State, yeah.
Double-digit win for the Phoenix. Has Doug arrived? Like, have they shaken the cobwebs off? Is the Doug takeover about to happen?
Well, LeBron doesn't think so. But short answer would be no. It's
what did he have a show today? Like was he just like through the roof?
I don't know if they had like an emergency show, like emergency podcast, emergency show. We've gotten to 3 and 24 now, so I don't know if that called for celebration, but yeah, I have no idea. But yep, that old Doug got that big home win. So yeah, I admittedly did not watch 1 second of this game, so I have no comment on.
Nor should you. But
yeah, so good on you, Doug. Have a good show tomorrow, and yeah, hope that's in the lead.
Shout out to Doug, man. He needed one.
Yeah.
Hey, I have another note from the Horizon League. Greg Campy just tied for most Horizon wins all time.
Well, Doug's gonna beat his record, so
yeah.
He better enjoy that while he can, because Doug's coming. Doug's got one.
Yeah.
Doug got
what does Campy have? Like,
don't let Doug get hot. Yeah.
131 Horizon League.
All right, so Doug just needs 130 more. Come on, it's coming. All right, last game of note of the day. We're over 2 hours, so we'll wrap this thing up soon. But I had to talk about this one. Utah State, New Mexico in the pit. One of the biggest, probably the biggest game of the year in the Mountain West. Kansas State
It's
has
up
a
there,
chance
yeah.
to tie this thing here, but no way. No, oh my God. That's your shot? Like,
It's all year with this group. Yeah, they like Doug McDaniel
what
just
the
takes
fuck was
some of
that?
these ridiculous shots that I'm like, what are we doing here?
What?
Gosh.
Oh my God. But yeah, game of the year in the Mountain West. New Mexico won 82-79 in the pit. Like I said, I don't have anything to add for any of these
Okay,
games
well,
yesterday because I wasn't able to tune in. Like I'm just now seeing these scores from yesterday for the first time.
I was watching the 500 as well.
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
waiting, and yeah, it was a long day. I was
Mhm.
at the racetrack for about 16 and a half hours yesterday, so and then drove home today. So yeah, I haven't had a lot of time to dive into these games from yesterday, but that's a big result there in the pit. So uh yeah,
Big
Jacob
win.
said he was watching day two. Matt, you got anything to add on that one?
no, nothing much. Those teams will probably see each other for Mountain West Championship, I would assume. But that's a game that the pit made a difference for sure. It's a game Utah State probably wins on their home floor. But yeah, give New Mexico credit. True Washington was good in that game, and yeah, good on them.
Did you just see that in? Who was he passing that to?
What are
What?
we doing?
What was that? Oh my God.
Yeah, we'll get
I
used
mean,
to
it
that
was just
red
like,
sport, Kansas State, because if you get in the tournament, you're going to Dayton. Who is that too? Like, who is that too? That was
yeah, like there's
Tang was the only
no,
person in the
not a
area.
white, like there was 3 Utah players right there, not a white jersey like anywhere in the camera frame.
Goodness. Yeah.
I
Ugh.
mean, that was like a fucking Kenny Pickett interception right there.
Yeah. Well, credit Utah. They've been strong at home. That continues.
Yeah. All right, that should just about do it for this show, though. So we got 76 people watching right now. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna try to
Thank
get this
you.
one uploaded on the audio podcast as well. I've been slacking on that. I did it like the first couple shows and then started slacking off on that. But I'm gonna start.
Travis, you're muted. Wait, or is it on my
No,
end?
it's definitely not.
Oh, okay. I thought I was
Yeah.
losing it.
No, you're good. Your mind's all there. Don't worry. And I don't understand what this thing that Utah does. They like blow up the stick of
Yeah.
dynamite here or something at the end of this. It's a relatively, I guess it's pretty cool. It gets the crowd going here.
I know with the football games, like they have the like the Ute tribe dances.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then this man, everyone's into this here. Doing the team section here. That's goodness.
We cannot hear you, Travis. You're muted.
This has got to be one of the oldest bands in the country as well. A Utah band has some people that are not a day under 40. But give them credit, they are certainly into this. Now I gotta get back to Arizona Baylor here. Gosh, Baylor gets exhausting sometimes here. Like, I do not think Roach has been great for their team, but man, that team just is better when it's VJ Edgecombe and Rob Wright running the show. Yeah, Arizona's up like 14 on them now. This is not good. Now Waka's making shots, like literal jump shots. Defend, Baylor. Drew's just, I don't know if they've made it to the under.